Everyone for joining us. Good afternoon and welcome to the City Hall chambers. We are here to introduce the FY27 proposed budget. We want to recognize our City Manager Tom Modica, our financial management team, who just done an incredible job these past few months in building out the budget. We also want to recognize all of our department heads, our leadership, our city council, and to the community members who contributed in our early budget discussions in the development of this process. Your input helps us make sure that the decisions we make at City Hall reflect the priorities and the experiences of the people we serve. I want to thank our council members who are here with us and those who are watching from home. We have a lot of work to do in the next few weeks. Every budget tells a story about a city's values. It reflects what we choose to protect, what we choose to invest in, and how honestly we confront the challenges before us. As Long Beach's 29th mayor, it's my responsibility under the city charter to review the proposed FY27 budget and submit recommendations to the city council and to the public. These recommendations were developed in close partnership with our city manager and reflect the values that have long defined Long Beach: fiscal responsibility, resilience, equity, and an unwavering commitment to the quality of life for our residents. Long Beach, just like cities all across our country and here in California, is navigating significant financial headwinds. Rising costs, slowing revenues, unprecedented uncertainty from the federal government have created one of the most challenging budget environments that we faced in more than a decade. But this budget is not simply about responding to today's challenges. It's about protecting the progress that we've made together, making responsible choices in the difficult moment, and positioning Long Beach to emerge stronger and more financially secure. We have a lot to cover today and a lot to accomplish in this budget. Together, we'll talk through a plan that closes a $58.2 million structural deficit through an 8-point strategy to achieve fiscal balance. We're going to begin rebuilding our reserves, protect our commitment to public safety hiring, restore critical health department services with new dedicated revenue, and advance a comprehensive approach to traffic safety. First, City Manager Tom Modica will provide an overview of our fiscal condition, the proposed reductions, and the strategy being used to balance this budget. Then I'll present my recommendations for targeted restorations and investments. And finally, we'll have a conversation about a look ahead and steps required to strengthen our long-term financial position and achieve sustained structural surplus. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to our City Manager, Tom Modica.
All right, thank you, Mayor, and thanks everyone for being here, especially to our leadership team and our departments who've put a lot of work and thought into this. This is certainly a tough day. The mayor's laid it out pretty well. We're facing some pretty tough financial headwinds, but we have a plan. We are rolling that out today, and we have been communicating with our employees, as a lot of this does affect our employees and then our community that they serve. So first, we're going to talk a little bit about results. Budgets are about results, and so we'll talk a little bit about what was delivered last year as a part of the budget. Long Beach is experiencing a year-over-year reduction in crime, 34% reduction in murders last year, 35% reduction in shooting incidences. Overall crime rate reduction is 17% in 2025 versus 2025. We have maintained emergency police response times at or above the national average. We've launched interactive tools that you can use as a resident to see what's happening in your community. And in our fire department, we made some very targeted investments that have resulted in increased ambulance availability and improved response times in some areas by up to 30 seconds. In the area of housing, homelessness, and neighborhood priorities, we've opened last year a new shelter, 78 new interim housing beds, which represents a 12% increase in our shelter beds by the end of 2025. We secured $11 million from the state, one of the only cities to do that 3 times in a row from the state, bringing resources down to the LA River. We have launched our Youth Functional Zero strategic plan to support upstream prevention. Our clean team has responded to over 160,000 illegally dumped items. We've awarded 25 grants through our neighborhood grant program, and we've advanced the West Side Promise. We're continuing to grow our economy. We have elevated our city's profile by launching the Vibe City brand, We have created and launched the F&M Bank Amphitheater using dedicated dollars not in the general fund to create economic impact that supports the general fund. And we brought Long Beach Coast, a pro baseball team, to Long Beach. Tourism continues to be a strong area for us, nearly $2 billion in annual economic impact, outpacing the region, outpacing San Diego and Phoenix and Anaheim, San Francisco, and LA. Space Beach is booming. We're bringing 6,500 new jobs in space and advanced manufacturing. And we're also looking to work with our small business. We have 91 new local vendors registered in Long Beach Buys and 35 new contracts with local businesses. And then finally, in the area of infrastructure, these are the four main categories that the mayor and council have as their top priorities. We've completed the fourth year of the Elevate 28 infrastructure plan, largest investment in infrastructure in a generation. We've improved our PCI, our pavement condition index in our roads at the highest jump we've ever seen, a 9% increase. It's gone from 56 of a score in 2023 to 61 in 2025. Our goal was 60, so we surpassed our goal. We began transformation of the construction of the Studebaker Road Transformation Project, the longest corridor project to date, and we completed Artesia Great Boulevard last year, and we broke ground on the Belmont Plaza Pool in May. So before we get into budget, I want to do a little bit of grounding in budget fundamentals. We're a big, complex organization, and oftentimes it gets boiled down to what seems to be very simple, but oftentimes is very complex. And so we spend a lot of time kind of grounding in how does budget work, and what are some of those myths that we hear that we want to correct. We have a $4 billion budget in Long Beach, but really only about 18% of that can be spent on the things that most residents think of as direct city services, and that's the general fund. Where does our revenue come from? That pie is really diverse. So we've had to look at all kinds of different ways to grow revenues. If we were an East Coast city, that pie would look pretty much 90% property tax and 10% everything else. But here, property tax about 35%, sales and use tax 12%, utility users tax 11%. Those are our top three general fund revenues, all three of which have been impacted by actions at the federal level and consumer uncertainty. So what are the biggest expenses in the city? It's people. We spend 79% of our resources on our team who are helping people. So we use people to provide those services to help people, and that is different than a lot of other organizations. Expenditures, where does the money go? The number one area where money goes in Long Beach is public safety. 66% of our dollars go to public safety, and then you can see the other categories there as well. And so we talk about a structural deficit. What is that? Essentially, that means our ongoing costs are outpacing our ongoing revenues. And so you need to bring those back into balance. So you either have the option to increase revenue, which is very difficult to do in California, or you reduce expense, or you do both. We often hear about Measure A. Measure A was a game changer when it passed back in 2016. And we get asked, like, where did that money go? That money went exactly as promised in the campaign and in the actions that the council took. The times that we were facing were similar to today, where we were facing several years of reductions in public safety. And so the first thing Measure A did was stop public safety cuts from happening, and then looked at enhancements, and then looked at infrastructure. And so over the years, 155 sworn positions are funded by Measure A. If it hadn't happened, we would be 155 fewer police and fire. We made targeted investments of 48 sworn and 5 non-sworn positions, and then it created a dedicated infrastructure funding source, $404 million in infrastructure funding. So I want to do a couple of myth busters before we get into it. We hear these a lot, which is if we have a deficit, why are we building streets? Why are we building facilities? Why are we doing things like bike lanes? Those, even in a deficit, we move those forward because they're separated, they're funding by separate sources. So a lot of those are state grants, federal grants, county dollars, or Measure A, things that are restricted. We often say you're increasing a bike lane, but you're cutting a recreation program. Yes, that's how it works. The bike lane money can only be for bike lanes. The recreation money is general fund. We hear, why can't we use the refuse fund or the port money or tax airplanes? You know, these ideas that people have, those are all completely separate funds that are legally restricted that can only be used for those sources. We are not allowed to use those sources for the things that people think of as general government services. Get this one a lot. Why do we build an amphitheater if we're using emergency reserves or if we're using dollars or if we're having a deficit? Again, completely separate funding sources. That is money that can only be used on the coast, and it's really designed to bring people to Long Beach, to have their tax dollars here in Long Beach, support our local businesses, stay in our hotels, all of which can benefit the general fund, while the cost of the amphitheater is actually revenue generating. It'll pay for itself, and it's paid for out of a separate fund. Is the deficit due to overspending? We didn't add a bunch of programs in the last couple years. Essentially, these are the costs to do ongoing services with the people that we have. And so it's a drop of revenue and the increased cost of existing services. Wasn't there a surplus? We have not really experienced surplus. We've had about 5 years where we hadn't had to do reductions, but those were largely one-time surpluses that came in that were spent on one-time uses. And so we did not have major surpluses that just evaporated. We also hear this is the worst deficit we've ever seen. It actually isn't. There have been years where we've gone 4, 5, 6 years with just constant deficits pretty much at this level, or as a percent higher than where we are today. This is about 1 to 2 years of projected deficits. And then what else can we do to grow revenue? We have lots of programs underway. Space Beach, Grow Long Beach, designed to attract and develop new economic activity. Just to give a sense, a lot of these funding issues come in cycles. So we come and go. The red are deficit years. The green are years where we're not cutting. And so you'll see back in 2014, that's when Measure A came in, and we were able to stop some of that cutting that was happening every single year. Again, no major surplus, but we are kind of balanced. Then COVID hit. And then the last 4 to 5 years, we've had relatively stable budgets. We've had a big influx of revenue from the federal government during the Recovery Act, but those dollars are gone. And so now we're back to reductions with the economy that's happening today. So let's start to get to some of the numbers. What is our budget shortfall? It's improved slightly. It was early in this year, we estimated 60 to 80 million because things were still moving. Then it was estimated at 61 million. Now it's come down again. Some expenses have improved. We're at $58.2 million. So again, what are the deficit drivers that are happening? One is the increased cost of existing services. We've been hiring. We've been hiring police officers and firefighters, and we've been working to retain our city employees, and that has a cost to it. Revenue loss. We have lost over $20 million in revenue due to the economy. And then things like our health department that had been historically supported by federal and state funds, the cost to provide those same services have grown without additional support. And so that is requiring a general fund support. And so, again, these are the major areas. We talked about revenue. We talked about rising costs. Federal funding loss. We have had approximately $300 million in either expected or potential impacts from the federal government. And it's time to really now look at how do we balance our budget. So one of the things we hear from the community a lot is should we and can we be hiring more police and fire? We hear that from our council as well, and we've had a lot of success in doing so. Over the past 4 years, we have graduated 235 new police officers, including 85 last academy. That is the largest in our history. And in the fire side, we have graduated 87 different firefighters. So what has that done to our hiring rate? Last year, our police sworn hiring rate our vacancy rate was 26% vacant. Today, it's cut in half. We are at 13%. Not all of those are fully deployable officers. Some of those are still in training, but that is, one of the largest jumps we've seen. In our firefighter areas, we're at 3% to vacancy, which is nearly full. But those agreements that we brought on to retain our employees and also to attract new employees cost about $38 million over 3 years. And so that's a cost that is worth it, that is achieving results, but we also have to solve for that. And so we talked about federal funding loss a little bit, and so just putting a finer point on that, we've lost about $300 million. Not all of that is operating in the general fund. A lot of that is in grants, especially in our public works department. But you can see here, those are real impacts. And so what are some of our budget priorities? We're leveraging the strength of our diverse funding sources in order to invest in infrastructure and economic vitality. We're navigating today's challenges while laying a foundation for a stronger, more sustainable Long Beach, and we're shaping a budget that reflects our values. We've had an approach to decision-making here in Long Beach, and we outlined this for the council early on, but we said we're going to have to look at every single department. We're going to have to look at what are called related funds that support the general fund. We're going to focus on priority-based approaches. We're going to identify alternative service models. We're going to evaluate subsidy models, and we're also going to lay out a plan to protect our reserves. And so, this shows kind of where our solutions are. We got to solve about $58 million, and I am proposing a structurally balanced budget this year that will solve all of those dollars, and it'll be structurally balanced if approved by City Council or with modifications. So what does the future look like? If we solve all of the budget this year, the budget reductions, we do have one more year where it's about $27 million worth of reductions. That's in 28. And then after that, it's starting to stabilize, and you'll see actually some small surpluses. Next year, that $27 million is the year Measure A comes in, so the council will have some choices that they can use that for either public safety costs or infrastructure. And if that were to happen, and that were to be used to prevent additional public safety, you can see it's essentially flat. So there is some hope on the horizon. Before we get into any of the reductions, we ground ourselves in community input. We go out in January and do conversations with our community, and we had some robust conversations, and we record what they say, and we use that during our approach to look at the reductions. And so the top three things we heard were public safety, housing and homelessness, and education. So I'm going to lay out an 8-point plan for you on how we address this budget deficit, and we'll go kind of section by section. But first, we looked at reducing management and supervision. Then we looked at how do we shift costs to other eligible funding sources. Then we looked at how do we do internal reductions and loss of administrative capacity, internal cuts before external cuts. We're looking at areas where we can enhance. We have some real key areas that we'll go through that need additional resources even in a reduction year. We then look at where, if we're going to have fewer officers and fewer resources in public safety, how do we invest in their facilities, in their technology, and fund another academy to continue the hiring and fill those vacancies. We are going to propose some contracting out opportunities. And then after you do all of those things, that solves about half of it. And so then we have about half left to go, and we'll have some about $33 million in service reductions, and then we'll lay out a plan for replenishing our reserves. 1 second. All right, eyes getting weaker. So let's go through those categories. So reduction of management and supervision. This is an area where we're saving $7 million and 17 FTEs. These are things like Public Works is taking some pretty big reductions in their admin side, in their Business Operations Bureau. Their People and Culture division will be going away and be merged into the single personnel division. In Parks, Rec, and Marine, they're eliminating a recreation superintendent. In Health and Human Services, we're merging 2 different bureaus and creating a new Community Health Bureau. Technology and Innovation is looking at 2 major bureaus and reducing management and merging those into one. And then Police Fire are eliminating captain, battalion chief, and lieutenant level positions. In all of these sections, there are a lot of details behind it. These are ideas, these are summaries, but we encourage you to really look in the budget book. But this is to give you a sense of those reductions. Then the next category is shifting cost to other funds. So this saves about $14 million and 16.87 FTE. Engine 17 in East Long Beach was funded with some federal grants, and the promise was when those grants go away, we have been reserving Measure A to do so, and so that is done this year. That shifts to Measure A, and that is protected. Emergency dispatcher positions were at risk of being lost. Those can shift to Measure A, so we maintain those 2 positions. We have some critical jail transport officers who help our officers by being the ones that transport to downtown LA, saving our officers hours and hours of time. That is going to be preserved and moved to Measure A. And investing in our real-time crime center, actually adding analysts that can help analyze data and analyze camera and get information to our officers in the field. We have positions tied to infrastructure work like stormwater maintenance, pothole operations that can be saved by shifting those to capital projects. We're updating our fire MOU with the Port of Long Beach. That hadn't been updated in a couple years, and that's going to be full cost recovery. You'll hear about that later today, and that helps. We're also looking to increase our environmental health fees to full cost recovery based on a cost service that will assist our health department. Also move some maintenance costs to county funding sources. And we're going to get a new traffic sign replacement crew. It's about 7 people and a huge grant, a $7 million Caltrans grant that can replace traffic signs and bring on those employees to do that work. The next category is internal reductions and loss of admin capacity. So before we're a public service organization, before we go out and look at impacts of the service, we always look internal. That doesn't mean these aren't important positions. These are key analysts and support and management and accountants and all those things you need to run a city. But we do look at where we can make some reductions there in order to preserve service levels as much as possible. Police department is reducing non-contract overtime, for example. We are seeing savings in reductions in our technology and internal service funds, as well as our fleet. The council had a cannabis tax credit program that we set aside funding for, and we set aside ways for people to apply to that. We so far have only had one person apply to that, and so we'll be grandfathering that business, but then looking to recapture those dollars. We have smaller reductions in just about every single department in the city, including mayor and city council offices, city manager's office, city auditor, city attorney, community development, human resources. All of those are contributing reductions to get us to $22 million saved and 73 FTE. Next area is enhancing core services of community importance. So one of the things we hear a lot is the status of our medians. We do not have a budgeted program for the medians. We have teams that go out and try to address where we can, but it needs a dramatic increase. And so it's going to be about a $1.5 million increase. This is primarily coming from reductions in that administrative capacity from Public Works. And also we're going to be proposing new parking meters in areas that don't have parking meters and raising the rate to $3 to put money into our medians, trash collection, and fencing needs and irrigation. At the same time, we have heard about the street lights and that we have had street lights go out and we don't have enough crews to be able to do that. We're going to be adding new crews to our street light team and also doing conversions to solar powered. So we'll have additional crews that will be able to focus on that. We have crews in our homeless, in our park team that deal with homeless encampment cleanups. Those have been funded on one-times. That's going to be structurally funded this year. One of the big things that our council has called for, and our mayor as well, is a big improvement in traffic safety. And so you'll see in this budget money from new traffic cameras coming in that will do a huge increase. It's about 7 different positions. We're creating a new traffic bureau and merging all traffic into one bureau, adding a new traffic engineer, and adding 7 other positions to be able to really focus on getting quick responses to traffic. And then we're also going to be moving our noise compliance program out of the health department and into code enforcement. And so that is a consolidation. That's where it is in a lot of cities. That's moving a position over to be able to do that work out of code enforcement. Next category is police department facilities, technology, and the academy. And so you'll see later, while we do have to make some reductions in police, we're looking at how do we help them do their job with fewer officers through technology and facilities. This is not only to help neighborhoods, but also to prepare us for millions of visitors during the Olympics. And so we're going to fund our next police recruit academy. That's a $7 million investment that'll help us get by the Olympics essentially fully staffed and a 70-person roughly academy, and that comes out of Measure A. We have helicopters in the city. We're one of the few cities that have their own helicopter. They allow us to be on scene within 1 minute when they're up and running. And so that helicopter that we have is 23 years old. And so using grant and restricted funding sources, we'll be replacing that. We're also going to be doing a real-time crime center and having analysts be able to access data and give information straight to our employees on the ground. The high crime focus team has been incredibly effective in reducing violent crime in our city, and other crime is necessary. That's going to be permanently funded as the chief finds ways to make that permanent 12 FTE. And so these things were done primarily with other non-general fund sources. Next category is contracting out. So we're a full service city. We do a lot in-house, but there are certain areas where we can get efficiencies in working that through a private company as opposed to city staff. And so we take that seriously. We look at the cost. It's got to have a cost benefit to do so. And so there are 3 areas that we're looking at. One is parking services. We have an in-house collection team. We're looking at moving that 5-person team over to help with automated speed enforcement cameras, so they'll do that work instead and contract out the work for parking services. We do our own printing in-house. About 40% of the work is outsourced, 60% is in-house, looking to contract that out. And then school guard services, crossing guards, we do in-house, but those are very, very difficult positions to fill, and so looking to see if a company can help us with that. Each one of these needs to go through an analysis with our under the charter and meet and confer with our labor unions. So after all those things are done, now we're at the point where we have to talk about service reduction. So that solves about half the problem. Then the next category is about 33 million and almost 200 FTEs in service reductions. Again, these are summaries, but we want to give you a sense of what those are that our teams have done this. This was very, very hard for our department heads, but they looked at it with a lens, they looked at it with an equity lens, they looked at it with a data lens, and came up with these reductions to be able to continue to do our core services while having to reduce in areas that we know are important to the community at the same time. The first one is the fire engine. We will be recommending eliminating fire engine 14. That's the area that serves around the Colorado Lagoon. It has one of the lowest call volumes in the city, about 2,000 calls as opposed to 6,000 to 8,000 calls in other areas. It has the most surrounding fire coverage, and 87% of what it does for response are medical. And so the station will not close. The engine will be eliminated, but we'll have a BLS ambulance and a rescue ambulance to serve those medical calls. The second thing is a greater impact, which is a second engine will be closed on a rotating basis among 6 different stations throughout the city. And it'll move around every 2 weeks, will be reduced. And so that is the equivalent of removing one fire engine. That's $3.8 million. The next is converting an engine from permanent staffing to overtime. That does not have a service impact on the community, but that does put a little more stress on our firefighters as they have to pick those up on overtime shifts rather than being a permanent job. We're eliminating vacant patrol officers. We're not changing the beats. The beats will stay the same, but we'll have 17 fewer patrol officers that are currently vacant. Those right now are used to kind of fill gaps as we needed, and so those save about $4 million and 17 FTE. We'll be scaling back on our quality of life, going from 8 quality of life officers that assist with homelessness down to 2. And eliminating 6 motor detail officers, which have been vacant for a while. Those are $3.8 million. In the area of financial crimes and investigations and property crimes is going to be consolidating. And so there's about 18 different vacant positions, 18 there, that'll be merged and those divisions will be consolidated, saving about $5.2 million. And then PD will be taking some overtime reductions as well. In our libraries, those were some tough choices, and instead of closing a library or going to a more regional model, the recommendation there is to return to a 5-day service model. So we don't lose service in any of our libraries in our neighborhoods, but going for those 5 that were increased to 5-day service, that'll go down to the 6-day service, they'll go down to 5-day service. In Parks and Rec, they really had some tough decisions about investing in maintenance of the parks and having clean and safe parks versus recreation in the parks. And they had to reduce in both, but especially in the area of recreation, there are some reductions there. Be Safe is recommended to go from 3 hours to 2 hours. Recommendation to eliminate teen programming at Chavez Park, to reduce the frequency of classes at Homeland Cultural Center, to reduce at Lincoln Park, to reduce at Stearns Park, to reduce at Nature Center Museum and closing on Tuesdays. There is some funding for programs that swim at Jordan and Milliken that haven't been open for several years, but that budget is still there. And then we heard about this in the news recently, the RAP program. This is supporting after school at 7 different campuses. We will no longer do that work, saving $270, and we've heard from the school district other service providers have already stepped in. The kids will not be affected from their programming, but we will no longer do it with the city team. And then some reduced maintenance at Rancho Los Alamitos and Rancho Los Cerritos. Last slide on service reductions. Neighborhood services will need to shrink a little bit, losing a neighborhood services specialist position and 2 code enforcement officers. City manager will eliminate an analyst in the Office of Equity, which is reduced structural support for the Justice Fund, Language Access, and the Human and Equity Relations Commission. Health Department is going to see vacancies. They have about 47 FTEs that will be reduced that are vacant. They're reducing in the area of Veterans Affairs, in the Reach Homeless team, in maternal child and adolescent health programming, and the childhood-led program. And then we've also lost some grant funding in the area of homelessness. So there have been some significant losses at the federal level, but also at the county level. And so county Measure A funding drops about 32% in FY27, with another 43% cut forecasted in 28. We had expected some reduction in the state funding, but then that got restored last minute. And at the federal level, we're expecting about a $4.8 million loss at the federal level based on federal policy changes, as well as terminating 480 Long Beach households. So with all this together over the next year, we're expecting about an $11 million loss in annual funding. Had we not taken action, what that would have meant was losing hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of our shelter beds. And so we need to preserve those, and those are preserved in the budget. But it means we're going to have to reduce in some of our outreach, our prevention, and support. And so we will have a shuttle service go from 2 vehicles down to 1. We will eliminate weekend outreach unless it's of an urgent nature. And our mobile access center is reduced from 2 to 1. We'll have to reduce some of our prevention programs and some of our workforce development programs and some of our emergency vouchers. And so we currently have 40 emergency vouchers at a hotel a night. We're going to reduce that down to 15. We'll have less rapid rehousing assistance, less specialized health services, and overall this reduces about 8 positions in homeless services. So I know that's a lot. I will turn it over to the mayor, though, and he'll be walking through some recommendations, and there are going to be some restorations. The way the process works, the manager builds a budget, but then the mayor, after that budget is done, has a chance to give recommendations, and often in this ever-changing environment, new resources become available that weren't planned for during that. So you'll hear about some potential restorations that are all funded and that I support.
All right. Well, thank you, Tom. So certainly a lot to react to, but we're not done. There are some targeted restorations we can make. So the fiscal realities that Tom outlined are certainly serious. They are requiring difficult choices, discipline, and a clear understanding of what residents depend on most based on a lens of data and equity. We also demonstrate why preparation matters. Over the past several years, we've been intentionally expanding our work outside of City Hall because the greatest challenges facing our city cannot be solved by local government alone. We built regional partnerships, secured new funding sources, and advocated for policies that strengthen Long Beach's long-term financial foundation. The work is now producing tangible results and resources at the exact moment our city needs them. As an example, with a focus on homeless prevention, over the past few years, with our engagement at La Casa, it's generated more than $10 million annually to place into prevention and rapid and affordable housing and provide rental assistance programs for vulnerable families. We also supported, most recently, the City of Long Beach supported LA County Measure A, establishing a new funding source to protect local public health services as federal healthcare funding and local support to public health departments face uncertainty. Our growing partnership with LA Metro has created new opportunities as well to strengthen transportation coordination and advance major mobility safety outcomes. Last year, we anticipate this to be a difficult year, so we put forward a 2-year back to basics plan for our small businesses. Those dollars are available in this upcoming year to support our small businesses. So we've brought some new dollars to the table, but it does not eliminate every difficult decision. But because we planned ahead, we're better positioned to protect essential services, preserve critical jobs, and continue investing in our future. So let's talk about how we're going to fund the recommendations before I outline them. With the exception of voter-approved Measure A, dedicated to public health, the restorations that I'm going to outline, they don't depend on a new source of general fund revenue. They're funded by redirecting one-time savings, improving cost recovery, or maximizing outside funding so we can protect services without placing more structural pressure on our general fund. First, election savings. Because the Long Beach City Council and all the citywide races closed it out in June, we now have some one-time savings of $1.56 million that have been set aside for an election that we no longer have to host. We can place those dollars directly into community priorities today. So I recommend redirecting those one-time savings toward urgent one-time community priorities as outlined in the mayor's budget recommendation book. Second, the Long Beach Fire Department provides significant fire protection services that are directly supported by port operations, and I recommend that the city and the port update the fire suppression MOU to more fully recover the cost of those services. That adjustment provide $5.9 million in ongoing flexible general fund revenue, allowing us to restore more essential services on a structurally permanent and responsible basis. I want to thank the Board of Harbor Commissioners, their chair, Steve Neal, and Port CEO, Dr. Noah Hasagaba, for their partnership in this effort. It's stepping up at the right time for our city. Next, through our advocacy with the California Big City Mayors Coalition, the state has restored the HAP funding to $900 million statewide. It was originally proposed to be cut to $500 million. That action allows Long Beach to continue and restore core homeless response services without placing additional pressure on our general fund. We'll also receive about $10 million from La Casa, as we mentioned, to continue our work on renter protections and rental assistance, an additional $3.9 million in County Measure A funding to preserve rental subsidies, housing navigation, housing location subsidies that have been proposed for elimination now will not be eliminated. And finally, LA County Measure ER is expected to provide Long Beach with approximately $7 to $8 million for public health in our health department. And because of this precise allocation and funding schedule are still being sorted out and finalized by the county, I recommend that we move forward through a responsible phased approach that protects existing services and expands capacity as ongoing revenue becomes available over the course of the fiscal year. Together, these resources allow us to make targeted restorations without walking away from the most difficult fiscal discipline required to balance the budget. So my recommendations are organized around 4 priorities: protecting local jobs, essential public safety services, preserving public health in the face of federal cuts, advancing mobility and safety for all road users, and investing in thriving neighborhoods. Together, these recommendations chart a responsible path forward that protects residents today while continuing to prepare Long Beach for the future. Let's get into the first priority: protecting jobs and public safety. Every resident deserves to feel safe in their neighborhood and confident that help will be there when they need it. And over the past several years, Long Beach has made real progress in rebuilding our public safety response, cutting vacancies in half, graduating the largest police academy, building the infrastructure and the police academy that our modern department needs. We should not allow a difficult budget to erase the recruitment progress that our community has worked hard to achieve. That's why this budget continues that focus on hiring. $7 million in Measure A for Police Academy 101, while also investing in youth programs and preventing violence prevention before it happens. Public safety remains a foundation, so additionally, I recommend restoring 4 patrol officer positions, 1 within each patrol division across the 4 divisions. I also recommend restoring 2 additional quality of life positions, taking the amount from 2 up to 4, so they can continue supporting the neighborhood problem solving and the outreach in our persistent encampments. I also recommend maintaining targeted overtime resources and high crime focused team, traffic safety, and coordinated cleanup operations along the Los Angeles River. So these focused restorations are designed to maintain visible, effective coverage throughout the city. I want to thank our police chief for working together with us to make sure we take these limited resources and use them in the best way possible. Now let's talk about fire and emergency response. In terms of fire department, in recent years, our priority is to address the evolving needs of the community. With greater demand for emergency medical response, our fire department has met that need by adding more paramedic services in our departments than we've ever seen at any time in our city's history. So despite this difficult financial headwinds we face, our budget continues that commitment by preserving every paramedic rescue team that's currently serving Long Beach. The city manager's proposed budget includes rotating closures of fire engines, This has a significant impact across our whole city. So I recommend restoring the second proposed fire engine closure, restoring that only one general fund fire engine, which the data shows the need in that space is for emergency paramedic response. And so we're going to reduce from 2 to 1. That's the recommendation here, restore that fire engine. Together, these recommendations preserve both medical response and fire suppression capacity while continuing evaluating data-informed, innovative deployment models that match the right resources to the changing needs of our community. And as additional resources become available, the fire department should work collaboratively with our fire departments, our regional partners, and the county to evaluate models that better match the right response to the needs of each call. Community safety cannot only be defined by what happens after someone calls 911. It also depends on whether young people have safe access to parks and spaces, trusted adults, meaningful programming, and pathways to opportunity. Investing in youth will always be a part of our public safety strategy. So I recommend continuing the investments and restoring the cuts to the Be Safe Summer program, strengthening or restoring the cuts to the teen programs at Chavez Park and the program at Homeland Cultural Center. These efforts support our advancing peace and strong beach strategies by addressing violence before it counts. Community trust is also an essential part of public safety. In Long Beach, we continue to stand with our immigrant communities. I recommend restoring the Long Beach Justice Fund to $1 million, sustaining legal services for residents and families, navigating an increasingly uncertain federal immigration environment. We looked at $1 million as the average amount over the past 2 years that was drawn on. And so this will provide us the amount that we need to get through the next fiscal year and make sure that this important fund is available. So these recommendations represent a comprehensive approach to public safety: strong emergency response, effective law enforcement, violence prevention, youth opportunity, and trust between residents and government. Let's move to our next priority area. We're going to talk about preserving public health in the face of federal cuts. A strong public health system does more than respond to emergencies. It protects families, it supports vulnerable residents, and creates the foundation for a healthier city. Our health department is our immune system for our city. And that work is only possible when we have the people and the resources to deliver it. Measure ER gives Long Beach a unique opportunity to protect public health infrastructure and strengthen it for the future. So I want to thank the voters of Long Beach and the voters of LA County for stepping up in this moment when the city needs it. That's why we're proposing a phased plan to restore critical positions, create new public health jobs, and build a health department prepared to meet the challenges ahead. Long Beach is one of a small number of cities, only 3 cities in the state with its own public health department. And that independence allows us to respond directly to the needs of residents, but also means that federal funding reductions have an immediate impact on our city and our local services. And at the same time, federal cuts have eliminated about $1.3 million in community health and preventative care programs in Long Beach. The county is projected to lose approximately $2.4 billion. That will have a local impact on Long Beach. So I recommend using Measure ER to leverage it around 4 priorities. First, restore proposed reductions. Restore the 12 Health and Human Services positions proposed for reduction in the city manager's budget. These positions provide foundational services that should not be lost while new public health funding is becoming available. Second, protect programs losing grant funding. So I recommend sustaining services that would otherwise end because of temporary state or federal grants are expiring. We shouldn't allow successful programs to disappear simply because the original funding sources ended, particularly when their services we're showing that there's urgent health need in our community. Third, expand local capacity. As Measure ER revenues are confirmed, I recommend adding 26 positions of program enhancements to strengthen areas such as communicable disease prevention and investigation, public health laboratory capacity, and community health outreach. Together, this plan would restore 12 positions and add 26 positions, strengthening both our immediate response capacity and long-term foundation of our health department. And fourth, our health department depends on grants, and I recommend creating a dedicated grants match reserve. Long Beach should never lose an opportunity to secure millions of dollars in outside funding because we lack a relatively small matching amount. And so this approach allows us to leverage these dollars to grow the pie, but also it allows us to act now while remaining responsible about revenues that are still being finalized. Let's move to the next section. Transportation is central to the daily quality of life to all of our residents. It determines whether people can get to their jobs or schools, their appointments, their businesses, and their neighborhoods safely and reliably. And as you prepare for 2028 Olympic Paralympic Games, we must also make sure that our transportation investments leave a lasting benefit for the people who live here. Every resident in our city deserves to travel safely on our roads, whether they're walking to a local market or biking to work or driving their kids to school. But over the past few years, cities across the nation have seen a rise in traffic-related injuries and fatalities. It's time for Long Beach to meet this challenge with the urgency and the focus that it deserves, backed with real resources needed to turn intention into action. So today we're announcing a major step forward in protecting our neighborhoods. The proposed budget establishes a new traffic safety division in Public Works. I support this important step and the creation of a new traffic safety bureau focused on collision reduction, Vision Zero implementation, and safer street design. I'm going to ask our city manager to come walk us through how, in greater detail, how we're going to add more accountability and more coordination to one of the most consistent and persistent issues in our city.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is certainly an area that we hear about. Is that it? No. This one, right? Yeah. This is certainly an area that we've heard about. There has been a dramatic change in people's behavior coming out of COVID on how they're interacting with our streets and the amount of speeding and the amount of pedestrian deaths and all those things that have happened. And that's something we take very seriously. Earlier this year, the mayor and city council called for a major investment, even though we're in a deficit year in traffic, and that is what's being delivered. And so we are going to be one of, I think, only 6 cities in the state of California that we really pushed for to have automated speed enforcement cameras here. And we've put out where those locations are going to be. They'll be up by the end of the year. They will also generate significant amount of dollars. It's in the $2.5 million range to be able to fund neighborhood street safety improvement projects. And so that money does not go in the general fund. It goes right back to traffic improvements. So we are reformatting a bureau within Public Works to really focus just on traffic. It will be taking the traffic engineering function and enhancing that by about 7 positions, and also merging in the crews that do the traffic improvements into one coordinated bureau led by a traffic professional that can bring faster, more effective impact to our streets. And so that will be underway later this year. This includes traffic associates, traffic engineering technicians, a traffic division engineer, as well as analyst capacity to be able to answer calls when people call and give input onto those dangerous intersections and what we're able to do about it.
All right, thanks, Tom. So this is a big opportunity for us to meet one of the urgent needs facing our community. We also have a second opportunity to improve mobility for our community in the upcoming budget year. Most recently, I was elected to join the Regional Metro Board of Directors. For Long Beach, this is a significant opportunity to advance our mobility goals through regional transportation coordination, and I recommend adding a dedicated transportation deputy to coordinate the city's work with Metro. That position is supported through outside transportation resources from Metro rather than our general fund, because Long Beach needs a focused advocate working every day to ensure our regional and our local transportation priorities move from concept to real projects. Next, I recommend that our city formally evaluate a Metrolink connection, ensuring that the Long Beach Airport and serving the Long Beach Airport and connecting our city more directly to the regional rail system. As Southern California prepares for major investments in rail and high-speed transportation, Long Beach must be connected to that future. Together, these recommendations build upon our existing work with Elevate 28 and position Long Beach to compete for regional transportation resources that improve mobility well beyond 2028. Let's move to our next segment. Our fourth priority is investing in our thriving neighborhoods. A city is experienced at the neighborhood level. Residents experience their government through their libraries that open on time, parks where their children play, street lights that work, business corridors that feel active, and the public spaces that are clean and safe and welcoming. Even through difficult fiscal years, we have to protect the neighborhood institutions that hold our community together. Libraries are not just simply places to borrow books, they're centers for learning, digital access, workforce development, youth programming, community connection. And while we are shifting to a 5-day cycle, I'm recommending targeted resources to support additional programming in those libraries. If we're gonna be there, let's make sure that the resources to program it well. Also recommend protecting the critical operations both at the Ranchos and El Dorado Nature Center. We have structural offsets for both of those. These institutions preserve our history. They connect residents to natural environments and contribute to the educational and cultural life of our city. One recommendation is to partner with Partners of Parks on the Nature Center to make sure that we continue access there and raise the money that we need to ensure that is accessible. On the West Side, I recommend continuing the West Side Promise as a focused strategy to delivering infrastructure, economic opportunity, environmental improvements to stronger public services to West Long Beach. It's an essential program. We want to make sure that West Side residents can continue to fully participate and benefit from our economy. Back to business, I mentioned this before, the Back to Business plan that we adopted last year, the $8.7 million 2-year plan will continue to provide assistance to small business improvement districts, activating commercial corridors, continue addressing human trafficking concerns, strengthen economic activity across Long Beach. So the budget should protect that strategy and ensure we deliver the investments we've already made. So next, we're gonna talk now about an opportunity to invest in our infrastructure. Elevate 28 is our largest infrastructure program in the city's history, and we're in our 4th year currently. And we have one more year as we prepare, and 2028 was really a goal, a deadline for us to invest in our community. But investing in our city cannot end when the Olympic flames go out. Long Beach needs long-term commitments to the streets and the parks and public facilities that residents depend on every day. That's why we're beginning the planning of Renew 32, our city's next 5-year infrastructure investment plan, to carry the momentum forward and build the next generation of investments in our city, and leverage the momentum from the 2028 gains to improve our streets, our mobility, and our neighborhood assets through 2032. So I'll ask Tom Modica to walk us through the early Renew 32 framework.
Thank you, Mayor. So maybe about 10 years ago, before Measure A, before we really went out and found lots of different funding sources, both locally and regionally, we used to do maybe one street a year. We didn't have any real street maintenance money. We didn't have capital improvement money. And so we really didn't have a comprehensive plan. That all changed with Measure A. That's been one of the largest investments that we've had in a generation. And so we've been doing that work. And now we've also had additional street money come in that we've advocated for from both county and state local or resources. In Long Beach, we map every street and we use data, and we know what every index is on every single street. And then we apply those dollars through formulas to find ways to increase our streets. And so everything is on a map, everything can be seen, and then we release maps and say, this is our commitment over the next 5 years. We have made enormous progress over the last 4 years. There'll be an analysis out later today that'll show that by the end of the 5-year plan, we'll have accomplished, I think, something like 96, 97% of what was promised, and the rest will be done in the next year. But then we're also unveiling a new 5-year roadmap for streets, and then later this year, we'll do another 5-year roadmap for the entire city for infrastructure as well. And so this is an example of what has been accomplished over FY28 and when you add in, through 28 and when you add in 32. Our capital improvement plan has been released, and it's went up another $152 million of Elevate 28 compared to FY26. It's now $1.24 billion for more than 180 projects across 8 funding categories. So all of these are linked on our website, elevatelb.com. The largest improvement is mobility and safety at over $500 million. We have Olympic legacy projects at $260 million, gold medal park refresh projects at $100 million, public facilities at $88 million, park improvements at $60 million, right-of-way improvements at $138 million. Today, we're also announcing and releasing in a separate memo what our proposed plan is for street reinvestment over the next 5 years. We have a $250 million investment over 5 years, about $50 million, and we will outline those streets. This will be considered by the council as a part of this budget and give us direction on moving forward with that. And as you can see, a lot of colors on those maps. Those are a combination of slurry, of street reconstruction, and arterials. I will say it's not enough. We do need to do even more than that, but again, that map 10 years ago looked like one street per district, so it is going to be noticeable, but there is more work to do for sure.
Thanks, Tom. That's a significant amount of work with Renew 32, but now is the time. We also know that our coastline is one of the most important environmental, recreation, economic assets. We have an opportunity to present a coordinated package of investments to improve water quality, restore public spaces, strengthen infrastructure and public safety along our waterfront, and ensure our waterfront is ready to welcome the world in 2018. So we're going to ask our city manager to come forward and talk a little bit about the one-time opportunity we have in our Tidelands.
Thank you, Mayor. So a couple things going on in Tidelands. Tidelands has been seeing some financial pressures, but we've been working to both manage costs in there and also to increase revenues. And so things like doing the amphitheater, things like bringing back a lot of convention activity, bringing back the Queen Mary, all of those have been part of Tidelands. And so Tidelands is also seeing a big boost from the Port of Long Beach. They are seeing record cargo numbers and are increasing their transfer to the Tidelands, which is helping. So we have some funds to be able to invest in Tidelands. One thing I do want to mention, with the reduction of police officers that we saw earlier on, we will be moving 5 of those police officers into the Tidelands to be funded that will respond to calls for service. They will be able to take calls for service in the Tidelands area, which frees up officers from having to respond to those. That allows them to respond citywide as well. And so we'll have a sergeant and chief, 4 officers? 4 officers. As well as a quality of life that can handle our Tidelands areas where we see a lot of activity and a lot of visitors coming, while our other beat officers will be focused on the city. Then we have about $12 million worth of capital projects in the Tidelands. These will be outlined in the community budget book, but these are also getting ready for the next 2 years. We'll be doing investments in Ocean Boulevard and resurfacing and mobility. We'll be creating a transportation hub down on Shoreline Drive, right in front of the Pike. We'll be resurfacing the bike path. We'll be improving how to get over to the Queen Mary, as well as doing improvements at the Queen Mary and working on removing the submarine that's there. We'll be investing in the Belmont Pier and repairs for the Belmont Pier. We'll be investing in Naples Seawall's construction, as well as starting to plan for a new parking garage over at the Queen Mary. We also need to get ready for the Olympics in 2 years, and so those non-general fund resources will help us do Olympic volunteer support and have more security cameras and venue Wi-Fi, lighting and camera mobility improvements, as well as investing in our public health lab and their water quality testing. And then we'll be doing about $1 million worth of city beautification along the coast as well. And then finally, we have a separate fund that is the Marina Fund that boat owners pay into. And so that has about a $24 million investment. Boat owners have been waiting for this for a long time and been paying into that fund. That's listed in the budget book, but one of the big investments will be replacing the restrooms. And then also we'll be constructing the Belmont Pier dock, as well as dredging the Alamedas Bay Channel. And so all those can be found in the area here in the budget book. And again, those are big investments in an area that have restricted revenues that can't be spent anywhere else. But those areas belong to all of us in California. So everyone's allowed to visit the beach, and we want to have some of the best facilities of any city in California.
All right, thank you. Okay. So we need to continue investing there, but also we know that our residents and our citizens, our employees deserve a stable financial future. And that means we have to diversify our revenue, expand our tax base through economic growth. That's where Grow Long Beach comes in. It's been working. We should continue to do that. We're seeing the benefits of Grow Long Beach. 6,500 jobs we've seen so far. That's going to continue. 8,000 by 2028. We're anticipating. We're on track to see even more growth there. As a venue city for 18 Olympic and Paralympic sports, we have another opportunity to accelerate our growth. So the goal shouldn't just be to host a successful game. It should be to create lasting economic legacy for Long Beach. In 2 years, the eyes of the world will be on Long Beach. And so this is an opportunity to accelerate projects, strengthen our waterfront, create an economic and infrastructure legacy that will benefit our city for generations. So I recommend launching an Accelerate by 28 infrastructure delivery team to fast track key projects ahead of the games, including mobility, accessibility, public art and cultural projects, and new revenue opportunities like digital advertising. I also recommend accelerating planning and stakeholder engagement for the redevelopment of Pier H and Shoreline Drive with the goal of releasing a public solicitation by the 2028 games. So these are not simply Olympic projects, these are investments in the future of Long Beach, and we should leverage these next 2 years strategically. So now let's look ahead. The budget marks a turning point for Long Beach's fiscal recovery. We're not just balancing another difficult budget. We're addressing the structural imbalance that has persisted since the COVID-19 era, has been made worse by an uncertain funding landscape in Washington, while protecting our priorities, protecting services that residents value most. Our 5-year forecast shows the structural deficit continuing to narrow over the next 2 fiscal years. If revenues and expenditures remain consistent with these projections, with new Measure A revenue approved by Long Beach voters expected to solve the remaining shortfall. So by following the plan laid out today, we'll position Long Beach to achieve its first significant and sustained structural surplus in more than a decade by 2028. But achieving structural balance is only part of the work. We also have to rebuild our reserves that protect Long Beach during recessions, emergencies, and future periods of uncertainty. So I'll ask Tom to walk us through our proposed reserve strategy and the role that reserves will play in the coming years.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is that last part of that 8-point plan, which is, we're solving to this year's deficit, but in the last 2 years, we've had to rely on some reserves. That's what reserves are there for. You can use those to smooth out those unexpected things that are happening, especially the financial impacts that we're seeing coming at the federal level, but they need to be replenished. And so I am proposing a plan that'll put $9.8 million back into our emergency reserves. That is coming from a way that we're addressing our fleet fund, and we're basically going to be using some of that cash to put into the fleet fund, and then essentially use a lease finance for the next 5 years to fund our fleet. So our fleet is going to be maintained whole. We're going to have the resources we need there, but this also puts money back into the emergency reserves. This is the first step. We're going to be doing that over the next several years to build up our emergency reserve and then to also rebuild our operating reserve. So this is incredibly important. I really urge our mayor and council to continue with that. It is a hard thing to do when there's going to be requests for additional funding, but it is really important that we get back to those council financial policies, and that's something the council has always been very, very strong on. So we look forward to that discussion, and I'll turn it back to the mayor.
All right, thank you. So I recommend that we take this initial investment and we add $200,000 additional to proposed reserve allocation, bringing the total FY27 replenishment to a clean $10 million. I also recommend that we direct the city manager to prioritize additional reserve replenishment in future years wherever year-end performance produces a general fund surplus. A single allocation will not restore our services. It means maintaining the fiscal discipline and direction necessary to rebuild them over time. So taken together, my FY27 recommendations restore about 70 critical positions. These are people. And between my recommendations and city manager's proposed budget, we're adding new positions for critical new priorities through Measure ER and traffic safety resources. This work helps to protect patrol, emergency response coverage. It helps preserve public health and invest in safer streets, youth development, stronger neighborhoods. And they do so while keeping Long Beach on a path toward structural balance. But even with those efforts, we know reductions will affect dedicated public servants, their families, and the departments that rely on their work. So now it's time to talk about the net impacts. So I'm going to ask Tom to come in and let's talk about now the workforce impacts and the process ahead.
Okay, so we've laid out kind of where those reductions are going to be, and I want to talk about it in two different ways. One, when you put together budgets, you calculate the value of a position, and we call that a full-time equivalent, FTE. And so we are reducing 227 FTEs as a whole in the entire city, even after adds in non-general funds areas. The mayor's recommendations puts back about 39 FTE, almost 40, and so the net total is 187.52 FTE. But FTE is a budget term. In the end, we're talking about people. We talk about 80% of our budget goes to people. These are people. These are real people with real jobs and real lives. This is their employment to support their families and support their kids. And we take that very, very seriously. While this is the right thing to do, and we need to do it from a fiscal perspective, I'd like us all to remember just the human impact of what is happening today. And so essentially we have, this is what it looks like by department, and so we've shown an FTE, but I also want to show it by position. And by position, overall, what was in the proposed budget was 483 positions in the city that are impacted. And so 220 of those were vacant, and so 263 are currently expected to be filled. The mayor's recommendations puts back about 70, and so some are filled, some are not filled, but all of those represent opportunity, and so the new number is 413, but when you take out those vacant positions, we're probably talking about 200 employees that are currently filled that are impacted. So we take that very seriously. We have spent today explaining to as many of those employees as we can in person what is going on and why these recommendations, while difficult, are being made. And now we go through a process where we try to help as many of those employees find other employment, hopefully within the city, but if not, with all the other resources that are out there. And so there are rules in our civil service system that allow us to move certain employees certain places. It is complicated, it is complex, it's based on seniority, but we are committed to this work to do everything we can to try to find as many people employment as possible. That may not be possible in every situation, but we're committed to talk individually to employees and with our labor unions to try to make all this happen, and also to make it happen by October 1st. In the past, we could sometimes take several months to be able to do this work because our one-time dollars are basically the emergency reserve. We really need some urgency. We'll be waiting for the final direction from council on if there's any changes to this plan and restorations, and then work with the employees to transition and do all this work before October 1st.
All right, thank you, Tom. All right, so I want to acknowledge that this is the most difficult part of the proposed budget. As the city manager outlined, this proposal eliminates, once it casts down from FTE to actual positions, you remove the unfilled, you remove the 70 that are potentially restored through the manager's budget. It's about 180 filled positions is what is remaining. So these aren't just positions on the organizational chart. These are people, colleagues. These are people whose families have dedicated themselves to public service and who count on them as breadwinners here in Long Beach. So these are incredibly difficult decisions, and they're not recommendations that we take lightly. In terms of that 180, I will note, because this is a matter of public interest, about 80 of those positions are associated with the RAP program. So the City of Long Beach will no longer provide that program, but it doesn't mean the program will not happen. It is an after-school program. We've been in communication with the school district. New providers are coming online who need to staff up. So we are currently engaging and asking our workforce agency, our city manager, to work together with the school district and new providers to help a transition path process for the workforce. The individuals who served in RAP last school year have an opportunity to serve with the new providers. So about 80 of those 180 will be targeting and focusing on making sure they connect because the program after school services will certainly continue. So our responsibility today is not only to today's budget, it's to the long-term financial health of our city and to the thousands of employees who depend on a stable and sustainable organization. Our employees deserve more than temporary fixes that simply postpone difficult decisions. They deserve a city with a stable financial future. That's why I believe we have to stay the course. By adopting these recommendations, we can eliminate the structural deficit, begin rebuilding our reserves, and put Long Beach on a path to its first sustained structural surplus in more than a decade. That is the stability that our workforce, our residents, and our community deserves. Long Beach entered this budget year facing rising costs, slowing revenue, but we did not enter it unprepared. For years, we've planned ahead, built regional partnerships, secured new funding, we've gone to the voters, we've made disciplined decisions about how to strengthen our financial foundation. And because of that preparation, Long Beach is protecting critical services and jobs. We are continuing to invest in our priorities and our future. And as the City Council begins its budget deliberations, there will be additional priorities and proposals worthy of consideration. So I've set aside a one-time reserve for this. I'm committed to working collaboratively with the City Council and the Budget Oversight Committee to address those priorities, but our deliberations must remain within a clear and responsible framework. Any new expenditure should be accompanied with an identified, sustainable, and equitable ongoing funding source. One-time revenue should only support one-time costs. Structural resources should support structural commitments. And amendments should not reopen the deficit that we worked so hard to close. This is not simply an accounting principle. It's how we protect essential services. It's how we preserve the confidence of our workforce and our residents, and how we avoid passing today's financial decisions on to future generations. So to the public, now it's your turn. There are meaningful conversations and opportunities to make your voice heard and stay informed. Attend one of our community budget meetings to make your voice heard. To find more opportunities to tap in, visit our website, longbeach.gov/budget. I know that we're navigating a difficult period, but Long Beach has confronted difficult moments before. If we remain disciplined, if we stay focused on our strategy, and we continue to work together, we'll do more than balance the FY27 budget. We'll protect the progress we've made, we'll strengthen the foundation for future generations, and deliver our first sustained structural surplus in more than a decade. Thank you.